Hello, this is Stephen Price. Thank you very much indeed to the International Film Music Critics Association for this award. It really means a lot, and it's always been great to know that this community is out there and listening to this stuff that we do. And something like this, especially for this film, which means a massive amount to me, was a great honour. So thank you very much indeed.
Hello, Stephen. Many belated congratulations on your IFMCA Award, or should I say awards, because I've given you 3 today, for the Best Original Score for a documentary for David Attenborough, A Life on Our Planet, which I thoroughly enjoyed re-listening to this week.
Oh, great.
Beautiful score.
Thank you.
This was a deeply personal documentary for Attenborough. He says at the beginning that this was his witness statement. How did that actually affect your approach to composing the score?
It made it a real honour, to be honest, and the fact it was his witness statement, and it's the first time really that he has, stared down the barrel of the lens and said what he thought. And most of his work has been this brilliant natural history stuff where he's talking about the glories of the world, but we don't really hear his opinion. And obviously he has one, but you work with the BBC, you don't necessarily give that, and this was an independently produced documentary. WWF were basically funding the whole thing. And so it was his opportunity to say what he thought. And so musically, it had to be him. It had to be his voice. And, we often, in some of the other natural history documentaries that I've been lucky enough to do, it's quite a big scale and it's epic and it's sweeping and it's quite cinematic. And he's not like that. He's a very dignified, quiet man. He uses his words very sparingly. And so I wanted the music to feel like that, really. I wanted it to feel like things were being said because they needed to be said, not because they were pretty or not because they were sort of dramatic or whatever. It just had to really hang on to his words and hopefully feel like it reflected him as the man,
Yeah. You've actually answered my second question, which was it's a deeply personal documentary for Attenborough. And how did it affect your approach to composing the score? But you've just said it, really. You wanted it to be really balanced and...
Yeah, and it's a smaller scale thing to what we'd done before. It was one of the first things I did was talk to lots of people who work with him a lot and, what sort of music does he like? Because we'd not really spoken about it. He's narrated all these things that I've done the music on, but I didn't really know. And it turned out he's a huge chamber music fan and his entire library is filled with 12-inch vinyl chamber music, the classics.
Nice. I love that vinyl bit.
The intimidatingly brilliant classics,
Yeah.
And so that was the first decision, that let's do it on a smaller scale then, let's make it, intimate. And it was a small string orchestra and solo flute, solo clarinet, a solo horn and a solo trumpet and piano and harp. So that was it, which is, probably a third of the size we've been using on some of these other projects. But it meant you could really handpick every single player and really write with their sounds in mind. And, just hopefully make it feel like it was very intended. Everything was very intended for each moment.
Decca Records' website says that Price has developed a deeply moving soundtrack recorded at Abbey Road Studios in London in 2019, with sessions attended by Sir David. Did he have any input regarding the score?
No direct input into the writing of it beyond the fact, I was trying to do something he would like. And that was one of the things that was most important to me, was that he would like it. And he came to the sessions and he did this amazing speech to the orchestra and inspired them. And
oh, wow.
It was great. He came down and we were playing one of the bits about hope in the film, about rewilding the world and how there's, opportunities to change things. And he did this little speech just off the cuff, standing on the podium in Studio 2. And it was, I wish we weren't here today, but we have to tell this story. I wish we didn't have to, but we do. And he kept going. He spoke brilliantly, as he does. And then the orchestra immediately played the piece 3 times louder than it was written. And it was a beautiful moment. I couldn't use it, but it was a beautiful sort of moment of what he could do. But, I got no sense from him of, was he having fun or whatever. And he left shortly after that. It was only a playback. We went to a playback of the whole film when it was finished. And at the end of that, his first words at the end of it was like, the music's really sort of helped this film, isn't it? And I just leapt up and sort of shook his hand, and that was like, it was.
I bet that was a moment.
Yeah. We all grew up with him.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
I remember hearing his voice from when I was very, very little, and we've always watched those shows. So so he did have a massive influence on every note of it.
The opening track, Mistakes, could have been quite dark, I felt, but there is also hope in this cue. Was it difficult to combine the light with the dark?
That was the big challenge of the film, actually, because I think we're all aware, working in this sort of field of telling natural history stories, which are not necessarily all the glorious things of how beautiful everything is anymore. We are now dealing with, we're in a terrible amount of trouble. And if you really lean hard into what a terrible amount of trouble we're in, I think it'd be actually quite distancing, and people don't necessarily want the full weight of everything all at once. So part of the film was that we wanted it to have hope, because there are a lot of good stories and there are a lot of things people are doing.
That's true, yeah.
And, there's a thing going on about Earthshot at the moment, which is a prize that Sir David's been doing with Prince William, and it's full of stories of innovative people doing interesting solutions. We wanted to get all that in the film to sort of inspire rather than just depress, really.
Yeah.
So I think the music gets dark where it needs to, and it gets really heavy in the middle of the film. But we wanted to sort of show the seeds of recovery, and the film starts in Chernobyl, which is this ridiculous kind of crazy story of how, once all the humans had moved out because it was unlivable, nature's kind of come back.
I know.
And it is remarkable that the range of
It
creatures.
is.
And so it is a sort of hopeful story, and so trying to find the line where we could acknowledge how serious and awful things were, but also lay a few seeds. And he spends the last third of the film talking about, things that can be done and should be done.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully the journey is there,
Fingers crossed. Evolution Undone is also another beautiful track, which could have been quite dark. What I really liked is the steadiness of this track, which focuses on what we have all undone, but also gives hope, as we've just said, or you've just said, that we can change things again. Again, it's a very, very balanced track, and I think that's what attracted me to it. And you said that you didn't really need all bangs and whistles and things. Yeah. I suppose what I'm saying is you weaved a sense of seriousness in it, which is quite clever, I thought.
Oh, thank you. I mean, it felt very restrained to me. Everything, there's a couple of moments later on in the film where things do become more celebratory because, we've got these ideas of what we could do. But a lot of it was this David is very, very restrained in the way he speaks. He's
soft.
It's always interesting when I get the scripts for a show that he's going to narrate and then compare what's in the script to what he actually says in the end, because he has a pass on the script and makes it his, And often it reduces and just really condenses what he's going to say into the smallest possible amount of words and leaves space for you to think about it. And
clever.
so that was like my guidance for the music, really.
Yeah.
If he's given all that thought to what he's trying to say and given you space to respond to it, then that's what the music had to do as well. So cues like that where it is telling the story of all this evolution that, and the brilliant way that things were carrying on till we got a bit too clever for the world, really, and tried to take everything without putting anything back,
Yeah.
So it's that story you're trying to tell.
Life's talent for change is very hopeful, serious, but not too heavy, with the most beautiful use of strings. I think that's the track I play the most. It combines the urgency of the planet situation with tracks of uplifting hope. It's this, to me, if you don't mind me saying so, that makes it an award-winning score. And I was just interested, on a personal level, did the subject matter affect you in any way whilst you were composing?
Well, I think you're just aware with this and the previous show that we'd done together, which was the Our Planet thing for Netflix, which is much more of a sort of, they call them the blue chip sort of landmark series, where it's that you really do travel around the world and see all this amazing stuff. But that was dealing with climate change, and it was dealing with the world's problems, and you are aware it's important. It's like this, and I certainly don't make any pretenses towards music sort of saving the world or whatever, but you're helping to tell this message, so you have a responsibility to tell it well, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It did always feel like it was more than a job. It always felt like you were kind of part of this communications exercise in trying to really spread the word about stuff that you know a bit about, but you don't. I think we've always, certainly through my hifetime, we've always just gone like, yeah, hole in the ozone layer is like not really my problem.
Exactly.
And the big landing thing now is it's all of our problems, and you can already tell in the way the weather is changing and the extremes of everything like that. It's it is all of our problem, and it's all of our kids' problems, and so it did feel just felt important. It just felt, that you had to get it right, and if that took a lot of revisions, if that took a lot of conversations with the directors, you just kept going because you're all trying to.
Did you find it a little bit pressurising at times, or you just worked your way through
There's
it?
always a lot of the pressure's kind of self-generated anyway, because you just want everything to be as good as it can be, so you're battling yourself most of the time.
Yeah.
But the directors on the film were brilliant. They're incredibly supportive, full of good ideas. And Johnny Hughes, the chap I worked with really closely on this one, he's great at structural thoughts. He was very good at picking out the melody that he'd written, that, that should come back there, or that should come back there, and all these sort of big geographical things over the course of a film that really sort of helps you feel the melodies when they come back. He was great for all of that, a brilliant sounding board. So it felt like we were all pushing in the same direction.
Oh, that's good. In the Cue My Witness statement, you bring in some brass, which makes it sound somewhat presidential, very fitting, really, as we hold Sir Attenborough in such great esteem. Was that intended at all?
Well, I'm not sure presidential, but certainly there's a stature and there's a dignity to his words at that point in the film, and it's very inspiring. And it felt. I mean, the brass players that I used, the two people I work with a lot. Phil Cobb is basically the world's best trumpet player, as far as I'm concerned. He's just got the most beautiful tone, and he can play out and do the sort of the glorious thing, but he's got this round. He grew up in the brass bands of the north of England.
Oh, right.
And so he's got that thing, which always has sent shivers down my spine. That sound. And we got to know each other well on a film called The Aeronauts I did a couple of years ago, which was full of brass band playing, basically. And he just made the whole thing soar. And so he came in on this, and just, there's a tone he hits which is very English to me. And it felt really appropriate to Sir David, because he is, I wish he was our president.
Who doesn't?
Yeah.
Thanks very much for that indeed. Glorious score. Well deserved your award. Lastly, I don't know if you can share what you're doing with us at the moment.
There's a few things. There's a couple of things in the can. So there's a film coming out at the end of October in the UK and in the US, I believe, called Last Night in Soho, which is the latest collaboration I've done with Edgar Wright, who I've worked with on films like The World's End and Baby Driver and things like that. And that's a bit of a left turn for him and both of us, really, in that it's a time travel thriller that goes between 1960s London and the present day London. And so that was great fun from a music point of view, and I got to listen to a lot of lovely John Barry stuff, and a lot of Ennio Morricone stuff, but also, we touch on sort of horror things in there and all of that. So there's a lot of got to play with a lot of tape loops and 60s inspired things like that.
This
and
sounds like fun.
And that sort of thing. It was incredibly good fun, and it's one of those films that's just pure cinema. It's just some beautiful cinematography. The performances are great, and loads of music that is really a part of the film. So that was a great one to play with. And then I've got a film called Distant, which is an Amblin film.
Mr. Spielberg.
Yeah, which was the first time I've worked for that company, and that was great. And we did a film about two astronauts crash landing on an alien planet and having to find each other, and that's probably as much as I can say. It's sci-fi with a hint of romance and a hint of action. And recorded that in LA in the summer just gone, and again, just brilliant musicians. That it's just a pleasure.
Oh, great. I'm glad we got more Stephen Price coming.
Well, thank you
Thank you so much indeed for talking to me.
No, thank you. And thanks to everybody involved. These awards mean a massive amount, because, it's just lovely to know that people are listening to this stuff. So it's all much appreciated.
Sure. Thank you very much.